This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hope you had a great weekend, everybody. Let's do this. Welcome to a Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Lots to get to coming out of a very busy last few days. Couple games for the Winnipeg Jets. A big win on Friday, maybe their best of the season, shutting out the Florida Panthers, and an unfortunate loss. Haven't talked about losses for the Winnipeg Jets in a couple weeks, losing 3-2 last night in Music City to the Nashville Predators. We'll chop it up and get the latest on the Jets with Dave Poulin, who was doing the game last night for TSN. Looking forward to having Poulin jump on the program. And we'll talk Jets and Bombers with Jeff Hamilton a little bit later on. Mike O'Shea speaking to the media today about the upcoming offseason. And, we've been meaning to do this, and we'll probably do it a little bit more going forward. But, with so much to get to, lots of National Football League action on the weekend as well. Connor's going to jump in with us. Connor Hrabchak, who's been doing a great job helping out Remis with clips, the newsletter, and, of course, Jets This Week. And if you were wondering where the Jets This Week episode was with the game last night, we'll be putting that together, and we'll put that out on the channel as soon as it's ready. So check your podcast feeds later on tonight if you're listening to the podcast. And for you YouTubers, as soon as that is good to go, we will have that up on the site a little bit later on. But Connor's going to jump on. We'll do a little three-way dance, if you will, with Remis and Connor later on in the program. We'll talk about the Monday Nighter tonight. The Vikings looking to continue their winning ways, taking on the Chicago Bears this evening. So a great program tonight, but we'll really focus in on the Winnipeg Jets to start things off in just a minute. One other thing, just before we get to, we can do this with Remis when we jump in. We do have some business to attend to let you know about, but let me thank the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. The gang at Coolbet, new lock shop is up over at the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. Our friends at Princess Auto, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets. Check out their Cyber Monday deal today. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on. Nick and Nicky DQ, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market. Get to winnipegsports.com/contest. We're giving away the Linden jersey and the Prairie Natural Supplements pack in a marble race on Thursday. And we're doubling the qualifiers this week. So a little later on today, we'll have two more names. We'll do that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as well. So get in there if you haven't already, and maybe you'll hear your name and get a marble for that great prize coming up on Thursday. Of course, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershop, and a why not question of the day for the gang over at not AutoCorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. All right, let's get Remis in here and get this show on the road. Shout out to everybody in chat. Reem, what's going on? How was your weekend? Oh, did it ever?
Hear me.
All right, self-mute, I believe.
No, I did I did a computer upgrade, and I think there's a Windows update screwed a lot of my settings. But it was a great weekend. Started off great with that win on Friday. I was basking in the glow of Nikolai Ehlers' highlight reel goal, and
that was awesome. Can we just talk about the Florida game all show today?
Come on, I don't
forget about last night.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about yesterday's game. I want to talk about the Florida sweep, Tampa and the Florida Panthers, and last night against Nashville. It kind of felt a letdown game coming. They were riding too hot. 5-game win streak, back-to-back emotional game on Friday against Paul Maurice. Rick Bonus's return. And I don't think they played poorly against Nashville. I mean, there's some nice pushback for sure. Maybe if the goaltending was reversed, the Jets come out with a 3-2 win instead of a 3-2 loss. I think you got to be happy the way they stuck to their game, but just wasn't able to pull out the W. But I mean, overall, has the 20-game mark. Got to be feeling pretty good about the Jets and feeling pretty good about the 2-1 road trip.
Yeah, listen, we'll get to goaltending in a minute. I feel like I kind of manifested that entire week, speaking on Tuesday, discussing, okay, what's going to happen when Hrabchak has 2 monster games in Florida? And then, do you play him on Sunday? Well, they didn't. And unfortunately, I think it's pretty safe to say that goaltending was the biggest difference between the two clubs last night. UC Saros, what a first period he had as the Jets were bringing it early. And then a late goal in the first period at the end of the first, and then an ugly one to put the team up 2-0 really sort of set the Jets back. But they did come back. It was all good. We'll get into it a little bit more. Just, Remo, before we kind of get too much into the program, especially wanted to say this at the beginning for podcast listeners. We are full go for next Wednesday, December 6th, at Little Brown Jug for our WST holiday party and fundraiser for the Christmas cheerboard. If you can go to the link in the description of this video right now, if you're with us on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, just go over to the website or our socials. There's a link as well, and jump on tickets. I believe the tickets are $11.98. It's at the top of the page at winnipegsportstalk.com. Every cent that we raise from tickets, as well as a raffle we're going to do, is going to go to the Christmas cheerboard. The folks at Little Brown Jug are putting together a great package that we'll be able to raffle off. We'll probably grab a couple other things from WST, which we'll get out there. And everything from the tickets is going to go towards the charity. And our great friends at Boston Pizza are going to send over a whack load of pizzas for us, so everyone can have a nibble or a slice or two while we're enjoying Winnipeg's favorite local beers. DQ Nick's going to pop in a whole bunch of DQ ice cream treats for us as well. And who knows, maybe some of our regulars will bring some of their special holiday baking as well, because the more the merrier. But it's all shaping up, Reem, and it's hard to believe. Like, I know we're the 27th of November. December is this week. So we're all over it right now, and people can get their tickets because seating is limited, but we hope to see everybody there on what should be a real fun night.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, seeing a lot of people getting out to Little Brown Jug, trying, the variety of beers there, but they got Czechs, bubble hockey. I'm working Huss on bringing some NHL 94 or something. This is going to be quite the gathering. So, we've done trivia nights there in the past. This is a straight party. What do we got? Pizza, ice cream, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Good
Beer,
times there.
Good times.
Yeah, good times, Huss. So nice little Wednesday. And also, Huss, speaking of gatherings, this Thursday is what WST night out at Canada Life Center. Jets, Oilers. And I'm fired up for that. So a number of ways to get out and see other members of the community. This is a big couple weeks here.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this game on Thursday. Well, put it this way. First things first, I can't wait to see the Jets get a crack at the Dallas Stars again tomorrow night to kick off this homestand. But 2 big games. And that Oiler game, I was always nervous about it. Listen, when you're going up against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, even if they're in the dumps, you know what they're capable of. Well, we got reminded what they're capable of this weekend. A 5-0 win in Washington, and then an absolute waxing 8-2 over the Anaheim Ducks. And McDavid went from about 100th in league scoring to the top 15 in like 2 days.
Yeah, that's right. Here's Mike Kelly tweeting it out today. On November 13th, he was 94th in scoring. Today, he is 16th. 9 points in the last 2 games. A nice 5-pointer last night in their dominant performance against the Anaheim Ducks. And they should have played Edmonton around that time. The coach got fired and they lost to San Jose. I don't know if they've turned around. They still give up a lot of goals, and I think their forward depth isn't great. So certainly, if the Jets stick to their game, they should give themselves a better, a chance more often than not. Probably gonna be talking a lot about the Jets after 20 games here, but I think at 5-on-5 they've been very strong. Special teams certainly been an issue for them, but I think that's fixable, and I think 5-on-5 is where the majority of games are played. So I think you have to like what you've seen here after 20 games.
Well, for sure. Special teams or the lack of production on special teams earlier on was much more of an issue. The PK still has plenty of work to improve, but I think that goes hand in hand with the resurgence of Connor Hellebuyck after an average start for Hellebuyck. The last 2 games, he's been brilliant. And listen, we can dive a little bit more into the goaltending situation coming out of last night's game, Reem, but let's not completely overlook Friday's game. And, the emotional return of Rick Bowness and the way the team played with Bones back on the bench was, most people said probably their best game of the season. Hellebuyck shutting the door on the Florida Panthers. Brendan Dillon beating the daylights out of Sam Reinhart. And Paul Maurice now, as I tweeted on the weekend, very popular tweet, 0-4 now against the Jets since he dipped.
Yeah, man, I got worried for Sam Reinhart. Brendan Dillon was laying haymakers. That was a serious tilt there. And shout out to the third line coming out to play there on Friday. Nino with a nice goal. Adam Lowry popping one in there at the end. But it was the Nikolai Ehlers one that really broke the game open. And this is the skill that you've seen from him. Skating through the middle, nice pass from Perfetti on the breakout, dancing around a defenseman and just placing it so nicely past the Florida goaltender. And that was a highlight reel goal. I can't remember every Jets goal ever, but I'm sure that is up there. But their 5-on-5 game, certainly excellent. You love the passion was certainly there with the Rick Bowness return. You saw the videos pre-game, and the Florida sweep, that's a tough one. So good for them starting off the road trip right, going 2-0. And just a great Friday night here. A nice Black Friday late start there for the Jets.
Yeah, and listen, I went out afterwards, or I was out for the game. Shout out to our friends at BP. We actually went to BP Charleswood. I think we were about 16 or 17 deep for it. And everyone was obviously in a phenomenal mood afterwards. But the next morning, caught a little of the IC show, listened to a little post-game of IC, listened to KNR, read all the newspapers. Like, I all I wanted to do was talk or read. I kind of wish we had a show on Saturday as much as I was tired and enjoyed the rest, because it was that sort of a game where if you were a Jet fan or had Jet fans in your circle, they just wanted to talk about that game. It was such an excellent performance. And to be honest, Remo, that's what made last night, the way things went, a little more disappointing, is that the team had the opportunity to run the table to make it what it would have been 9 of 10 if they had won that game last night. And it wasn't that the Jets didn't come to play, because they really did. But, we are used to it. Maybe we're spoiled. We're used to having the best goaltender of the matchup and, having that kind of go in the favor of Winnipeg and a lot of times being very impactful in the game. UC Saros is the Connor Hellebuyck of Nashville. He stepped up in a big spot. They won 5 in a row now after being 5-10 on the season. They get back to 500 to kind of stay in the mix when it comes to the wild card and really the Central Division spots. And unfortunately, and this is probably unfair considering backup goalies play as seldom as they do, but LB had that rough start with an 0-2 start. He'd come back with 2 wins in his last couple games. I can't say that he really built off that. And that second goal early in the second just was such a killer. Obviously, then it's 3-0. You think it's over, but not so fast. The Jets pushed back, a couple quickies in the third, and it was fully game on in the third period. But again, it's tough to spot teams, even, average teams like Nashville, the goals that they did last night, and expect to still come out on top.
Yeah, the Jets got out to a really hot start, Huss, and there was that barrage. I think they had like 5 shots between Iafallo, O'Connor, and Scheifele there, but was like 8 minutes in. And you look at it, just after 10 minutes in, the Jets are out shooting Nashville 12-3, and maybe they could have had a goal. Perfetti had a really nice chance walking down the middle early, very similar to the goal that he scored later on in the game. But they didn't. UC Saros stood on his head, and you think you're going into the end of the period, tie game, and Yossi bounces one. It goes off Brossois' I forget if it was a pass, or maybe they got directed right onto Trennan's stick. 18 seconds left. And then on that second goal, Yossi, he's at the boards, basically, near the face-off, where the ringette line is, and just put it on net. And I don't know if Brossois, he didn't see it or wasn't expecting it or wasn't ready, but I mean, that's a tough one, and you're right. You can't give teams free goals, and it was almost like everyone was surprised that such a harmless shot went in. And
no kidding.
When you're up, when you're up 2-0, and then they get a goal on the power play later. I mean, it was a beautiful pass, but I don't know how the middle of the ice there is so open. And 3-0, and I mean, that's real tough for the Jets to overcome. They certainly battled Morrissey with a goal, and Perfetti later, but it just wasn't enough. And again, as you said, you can't spot teams' goals and can't lose the special team battle, and that's not a recipe for success. And they had played so well, you knew it was going to end eventually, and they can't win every game, and they didn't win yesterday, but it's certainly within their grasp. I don't think you can be too upset about the way the team played.
No, I mean, overall, the fact that we're able to be here and be, kind of starting off a Monday show, sort of saying, well, too bad about what happened last night, thinking of the big picture of where this team is through 20 games. But you know what? Good teams expect to win. They expect to win against teams below them in the standings. And when the Jets were playing, and when they are playing the way they are, you realize you've got a chance to win every single night. Now, the Preds, not quite in the class of the Dallas Stars or the Oilers, I would say, when the Oilers are playing like they can, not necessarily how they have been playing so far this season. But it does open up a big-time homestand where, battle for first place tomorrow night with the Dallas Stars, and then Connor and Connor versus Connor and Connor, McDavid and the Oilers on Thursday night, and then Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks on Saturday afternoon. So I think these are going to be, games that, will have plenty of attention on them, not just here, but I think around the National Hockey League. And we'll get into this with Dave a little bit more, but it took a little while, and it took, a couple weeks of winning night in and night out. But there are a lot more people around the National Hockey League that I think are realizing that this Jets team maybe isn't what they thought they'd be when the puck dropped on the season.
Yeah, including me, Hustler. I mean, I think a lot of people who were in the preseason prediction game taking some L's with mostly on Edmonton. But as far as the Jets, I was like, look, they're going to be competing for a playoff spot, but competing for the division. I think that was a tough sell going up against Colorado and Dallas, but there they are neck and neck right now, 2 points behind Colorado and tied with Dallas, so they played one more game. But, their goal differential looks good, plus 12. Their 5-on-5 numbers in terms of expected goals are very strong. And I think last year, around this time, you thought maybe they were relying on Hrabchak a bit too much, and they were getting some really good performances from Dave Rittich as well, but they haven't, for the most part, got that exceptional goaltending. Hrabchak just got a shutout, and he has been pretty good lately. But his save percentage, as you mentioned last week, literally just got over 900 for the year. So when you're ranking the teams in Canada, I know I just got the alert from the TSN app. They have the Jets at number 1 in terms of Canadian teams. Vancouver got off to a hot start, but I think people are realizing. They're falling off a bit. But, here's the TSN power rankings. The Jets are number 4, up from number 6 last week, which is kind of crazy. Actually, I don't know. I don't even know
who's ahead of them.
LA is number 1? Is that true?
LA, they have 3 regulation losses. What about Boston?
It's LA, Colorado, the Rangers, and then the Jets. They have Vancouver and Boston after. Boston was number 1. This is the TSN power ranking. So this is, I don't know who makes them. Power rankings, or anyone could just put whatever and call it. We could make our own power rankings if one has and put the Jets number 1. But Boston's 6 after being 1 last week on TSN.
Well, I guess they did lose 2 in a row. So that's they had set the bar pretty high. The Kings now are just one, like the Kings are 13-3-3 in 19 games. The Bruins 14-3-3 in 20 games. But again, there's a lot, like these are weighted heavily towards what has happened lately. So I have a feeling those votes were in before last night's game with the Jets losing to Nashville. And a lot of people paying attention to the way that this team has played. Now, 8-2 in their last 10. And if they had won last night, that would have been 9-1. So, I mean, that really is right there with the best teams in the league. LA's 8-1-1 in their last 10 right now. The New York Rangers are 8-1-1 in their last 10 right now. Panthers are 7-3. The other thing that blew me away, and we'll kind of get into this with Dave Poulin a little later on. I mean, the Leafs, you look at their record, 19 games, 10-6-3, 23 points, pretty good. Of those 10 wins, they only have 5 in regulation right now, Remis. That's a team that's lucky we don't have 3-point games in this league as we should.
Shocking. That's actually really shocking. And that's why when you look at the standings, they have the column for ROW, regulation overtime wins. Oh, sorry. They also have RW, regulation wins, more important than winning in a skills competition or a mini game. But yeah, only 5 regulation wins for Toronto. Certainly surprising when you look at Boston 12, Florida 12, Detroit 10. So I know this isn't Toronto sports talk here, but for a team, we're talking about the Jets where they rank among Canadian teams. I think everyone would have had the Leafs as number 1, and it seems like some of their moves haven't really worked out. Some of their offseason moves haven't worked out for them, but they do have some really high top-end talent there in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the Leafs. They'll be a playoff team. They'll be a problem a little later on this season. But it is important to note, and this is not good for a team like Edmonton, and it's great for a team like Winnipeg. Every one of these games counts the same as the games that you're going to need in March and in April. And to get a start like this in under their belt puts the Jets in a great spot, especially going into a big week with some big-time teams coming into Canada Life Center, beginning with a big divisional matchup with the Dallas Stars. So we're going to hear from Rick Bowness in just a minute. But I do like this comment from SK. LB, like any other goalie, needs games, but the Jets cannot sit Helly too much because he loves to play and needs to play. LB will just have to do what he can. And listen, I do think that they're going to want to put Brossoit in situations where he can succeed, and I think that was part of the reason why they decided to go with him last night. There is something, I mean, as I said, we talked about this all week long last week, thinking that we were about to get on a nice run of Connor Hellebuyck play, which certainly did come to fruition. That had to have been a tough call, I would think, for the coaching staff to not let Hellebuyck go head-to-head with Saros, considering the rest he had before the Tampa game, 4 games between starts, and the fact that he, played at that level, including the shutout against Florida on the weekend. You just hope that he can carry that over with the extra rest against Dallas tomorrow, Remo, because to beat a team like Dallas, you're going to need the Hellebuyck that was playing against the Lightning and the Panthers last week.
Yeah, well, you have a backup goalie. He's got to play sometimes, and I think it certainly worked out for him to go against Nashville. Everyone saying in chat, we've speculated here, Chicago on Saturday would be his next one. Then you have a Hellebuyck who's rested for tomorrow's big tilt against the Central Division rival Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers. And you look up Brossoit's stats on the year, he's played 5 games, and his goals saved above expected is minus 4.2. The per 60 rate is 0.8. So, I mean, just under one bad goal a game, and it's certainly tough. But look, and you look at his,
it's not going to cut it.
Yeah, look at his numbers. Has 2.97 goals against, 8.77 save percentage, both well below his career numbers. So I know there's people in chat right now saying we need a new backup. We got to switch out Brossoit. He's not cutting it. I mean, look, this guy's shown he's an NHL goalie. He's shown, he had a great year last year with Vegas. What did he go? 7-0 with a 9.27 save percentage. He had a great year with the Jets in 2021, 9.18 save percentage. So he's shown he's a capable NHL goalie. He's going through a rough stretch. I know the Jets probably still believe in him. But a couple tough ones here. But I'm sure the season we're only a quarter away through. There's still 60 games left, 62 games. I have faith and confidence that he'll figure it out, just like we had faith in Connor Hellebuyck. Obviously different goalies, but I mean, his Connor Hellebuyck got off to a slow start as well, and you hope.
I'll be honest, that was sort of the reason why I was sort of pushing that if the games in Florida went the way I thought they were going to, which they did, to maybe skip that start for the backup and let Hellebuyck really get on a run. Listen, it didn't happen. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback it, but it was sort of funny how much we talked about that last week sort of came into reality over the last couple of days. Sklardy, listen, this is a good point, and I know Kenny and Rennie were talking about this. I do feel for Brossoit because he came into a situation, when he signed here, where I think the most certainly public opinion and all the news that had been put out by insiders and whatnot said that, listen, Connor Hellebuyck was going to be here for a short time, not a long time, which meant a potential trade in the offseason, a potential trade during the season, but not signing long term. Well, everything changed on Thanksgiving when he inked a 7-year extension. And I think at that point, the entire situation around Hellebuyck and Brossoit probably changed a bit. And certainly from LB's standpoint, he kind of thought that he was coming into a spot where he may very well be the number one guy. And now he's playing behind one of the biggest workhorses in the National Hockey League. And unfortunately, things have changed, and he's going to have to deal with it, as is the club. But, there is two sides to this, and it's not just a beat up on LB, although if he had a stronger game, it probably would have been a lot easier to kind of defend the choice. But to everyone saying you have to play your backup at some point, that is correct. I still maintain, though, an extra start or two in November or December when your goalie's running hot that might allow you to rest him more closer to the playoffs isn't necessarily such a bad thing. We'll talk about this with Poulin coming up in just a couple minutes. But let's hear what Bones had to say. Great to see him back on the bench on Friday. Great scene afterwards with Adam Lowry giving him the puck afterwards and, kind of saying what he had to say afterwards. It wasn't as joyous a room, I'm sure, last night after the loss in Nashville. Here's what Bones had to say on Sunday night's game.
Sorry, one sec, Huss. All my settings got messed up from this update I did over the weekend. So that it didn't give me 1 sec here.
Strong start. I feel like
Velarde injury. So we reversed that against the Oilers on Thursday night. And then Saturday afternoon, Connor Bedard coming in. Looking forward to that one as well, though no Taylor Hall. And again, that Corey Perry situation, really weird. But doesn't sound like he's going to be with that team anytime soon, and potentially not at all this year. Are you you figured it out?
We're good now, yeah.
Okay, good. Here's Bones on last night's tilt.
inability to cash in on those early chances was one of the differences in the game tonight.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to give Searles a lot of credit. We came out of the great hard. This is great for 14 minutes. And I thought in the last 6 minutes of that period, we started turning the pucks over when there was no need to turn pucks over inside their blue line. And then they got their game going. We got our game going because we were going north, and we just kept pushing it back and taking them what they were giving us. And with the last 6 minutes of that period, we started to try to make cute plays that just weren't there. Other than that, yeah, I mean, we had some great chances. We had some good looks. Searles made some timely saves.
Saros was a beast in that first period, and of course, Nashville scored late in the first. But the one that was the real killer was, the second goal last night. Here's what Bones had to say on how he saw that one.
The second goal against it hit something on the way in, or
I don't think so. I don't know.
just
It's one of those goals.
caught cheating a little bit off the post.
he probably wants to have it back.
Yeah, I don't think Bones wanted to expand on that one very much. Just certainly one that he would like to have back. What did Bones think about the push back in the third period and the road trip overall? Here it is.
Listen, we had more urgency. We started to just keep going north, and they were sitting back, and they've got a good veteran defense back there. They know how to play a little bit, but that team's been scoring, almost 5 goals a game in the last 6-7 games. We gifted them 2 goals. I didn't like the penalty killer goal either. We had our chances. We could have won that game very easily.
Would you assess the trip as a whole, taking 2 out of 3?
Yeah, 2 out of 3, but we're never satisfied. You want them all. We'll just keep pushing. So we played really our structure in 60 minutes in Florida. Our structure just had a few lapses tonight, which usually happens at the end of a road trip.
All right, so there's Bones on the road trip overall in that game, which he certainly believed was there for the taking for the Winnipeg Jets. One more from the head coach. He's been away from the majority of it, but here's what Bones has to say about the Jets after 20 games.
Overall, our team game is very good. Our 5-on-5 game has been really good. Both specialty teams have to get better, but our 5-on-5 team game, for the most part, has been outstanding. It really has, and that's what's going to carry us through the next 20 games, and our special teams have to get better.
All right, so there's bonus, and I think certainly it's something that we've said for a long time on this program, watching the team night in and night out. The 5-on-5 play is there. That is the foundation of success in the National Hockey League. You bump that goaltending up a little bit, get a little more success on both special teams areas, and just how good this team can be, I guess we will find out. We're going to talk about it with Dave Poulin. You saw him last night doing a little in-between intermission work for the game. But before we bring on Poulin, we've got this final push, folks, for Movember. 4 days left in the month. The mustaches are growing in by the WST team. And if you haven't had the opportunity and you are able to, there is still time to donate to the Movember movement. We're well over our original goal, but still looking to raise important funds for men's health at this point of the year. Link is in the description, or if you're listening to the podcast, get on over to the website as well. Enter in the Vita Health contest, and if you can, make a little donation for Movember. Lots of charity things going on. Giving Tuesday is tomorrow, so maybe we'll do the big push on tickets for our cheerboard fundraiser for our holiday party as well. But of course, we're doing this Movember campaign in conjunction with our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. We have 8 locations in Winnipeg now, including the newest locations on either Pembina Highway or Plessis Road. Modern Man Barbershops offer a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Make an appointment and book your look via modernmanbarber.com. This would be a good hot tub time right now. You know who's got great spas and hot tubs? Aquatech, as well as the pool leaders in town. Now, if you want to make the plunge in 2024, you can talk to them and get that plan in motion for next year. But the focus for Aquatech right now is actually on whole home renovations, which start with Aquatech. Aquatech has thousands of rentals as their foundation and can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. Got a little chillier over the last few days, and I hate to say it, that is going to continue. But it'll be no worries for you if your battery's good to go for the entire winter. And that is going to be tested at some point this big Manitoba winter. The best place to get hooked up and take all your worries away for winter, of course, is Manitoba Battery. The battery experts in town, where you can shop local, get the best prices in town, and not even have to leave your home. That's right, gang. If you need a new battery for your car or your truck to make sure you're prepared for winter, go to manitobabattery.com and get the best price in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores. And while you're at it, whether you're ordering at manitobabattery.com or giving them a phone call at 783-8787, the gang at Manitoba Battery will deliver it to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg on any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. So go online, give them a phone call, or if you do want to get a free battery test and see where you're at, pop down and see him in person, 1026 Logan Avenue with the battery experts in Manitoba. Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan Avenue. And a big cheers to the gang at Canadian Club, proud sponsors of your Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and a big part of the holidays, which are coming up right now. Of course, entertaining, friends and family coming over, time off, and Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. What could be better than that? Stock up for the holidays now at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Check the Canadian Club displays for all the CC family of products, and not a bad gift idea as well for the whiskey drinker in your family. Canadian Club, proud sponsors of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. And we remind you that this holiday season and always, please enjoy responsibly. All right, Jeff Hamilton coming up a little later on. A roundtable with myself, Remis, and Connor Hrabchak. But first up, let's welcome in TSN's Dave Poulin for his thoughts on the Jets through 20 games and last night's loss in Nashville.
Poulin, great to have you back on WST. Great to see you on the Jets broadcast last night.
Always enjoyed it. I don't want to bring bad luck. We run into a team and they're rolling along at 8-1 and they bring in the broadcast, although I think I was a part of a couple of those wins along the way. You take it personally. You want to keep rolling. You got so many good things to talk about coming into that broadcast last night. So as you're setting up with Kevin Pratt, the producer, and you're talking about, what your storylines are going to be, Kevin Sawyer and I are dividing them up. It's like, we got too much to talk about right now. Too many good things. And a little slow out of the gate. And, we talked a lot about potential momentum swings. And the goal late in a period that you've dominated is one of the big ones. And then the early goal in the second that your goalie absolutely should have had, he'd be the first one to tell you that. And then from there, you're behind the 8 ball.
The Jets felt like the Raiders yesterday, like the Predators basically did the Mahomes. Where they score late in the second quarter, and then they come out, they get the ball, and boom, they score again. That's sort of the way it felt with the Jets last night, because, I thought, particularly in their first period, that might have been their best period before sort of the rally late, Dave. And and listen,
the game was great. And, and you can't, to me, and I did a little piece on Adam Lowry last night, and the piece basically was, I know what it's like to be the captain, but to not be the best offensive player. And if you think about it, a lot of teams, their best offensive player is the captain. Well, he can go out and change a game just with his play. I couldn't do that. I had to find different ways to do it. And I think Adam Lowry is a lot more along my lines as a captain, just playing the way he does and doing those things. But the way they start games, Andrew, is to me, it's tremendous. It's an honor to start a game. That line, every single game, every single period starts well. They tee it up. And I think that's a big part of Scheifele's line success is they pick it up halfway through and they're getting somebody back on their heels and hear this, so the start was really good. Through the early part of the game, they only gave up, 4 shots through 2/3 of the first period. And then a late flurry, as you'd expect from Nashville, playing at home, and they get it going a little bit. And they get that late bounce and carry it from there.
Obviously the goaltending conversation was the big one last night. Saros was brilliant. And Laurent Brossoit, as you mentioned, let that second one in, and I thought really sort of deflated the team a little bit. This was a conversation all week long last week as, Hellebuyck had 4 days off going into the Tampa game, played very, very well in both games. And we were kicking around, and I was sort of throwing out, like, maybe it's time at this point in the season to let Helly get on a run. Obviously, they had their plan. They went with LB last night. But from your perspective, Dave, how much thought would you have given maybe to, ride your number one for another 2 or 3 games with big games this week and try and really take that 5-6 game winning streak to 8 or 9?
I would have really considered it. And here's the way that conversation would go. And I would assume Connor's in the conversation, but he's in it through his goalie coach. And they're sitting around, and they're having their coffee and they're saying, okay, well, I love it because you don't use a name. Like, so how's your guy feeling? Your guy, And it's like, yeah, my guy's good. He's good. And they say, now, what do you think? Well, you know what? And they'll be plotting out exactly as you're talking about right now. I would have pushed to play him in that game just to bring the road trip home perfect. the temptation of blowing through Tampa and Florida. And by the way, Florida, that's a mean team right now. Like, they're playing playoff hockey right now. I had watched them play against Boston and then watched them play against Winnipeg. And I actually have them tomorrow night. So tonight they play Ottawa, right? I've got them tomorrow night against Toronto, and I'm in Montreal Thursday night to see them. So I'm in a Florida spree right now. And that's a hard team to play. I thought that was maybe Winnipeg's best game of the year in terms of a playoff type of heavy game. So coming out of those two wins, you've got so much momentum. I would have been tempted to roll Hrabchak through that game. And I think now there's so much talk about how much a goalie can play, how much they can't play. Let's start with the fact that these goalies today are in way better shape than the goalies that I played with. All due respect to the goaltenders I played with. The conditioning, the sports science, nutrition, the rest to work ratio, even the fact that they don't practice all the time. They get some practices off for rest. The travel is so much better now. I would play my number one guy. I'd be tempted to play him. I mean, UC Saros and Hrabchak are the two guys, right? I think in the last couple of years, they've been 1-1. They might have tied 1 year for most teams played, and then been one off where Saros played one more or two more than Connor did. But I think I would have been tempted to roll him and carry the momentum of potentially a 3-game winning streak back home for a homestand.
The funny thing is, Dave, in today's day and age, we see more and more teams going with more of a split. But I always say that, hey, if you've got two sort of, co-number ones, you don't really have a number one like Nashville or Winnipeg does. But when you get to the playoffs, you certainly don't do that. I mean, I'm not sure whether things have maybe gone a little bit far. And again, you saw what happened with Vegas last year. They had all those goaltenders, and now all of a sudden, you don't need a number one. Well, you're in a hell of a lot better spot if you've got that guy in your net if you want to win a game.
The guys that are telling you they don't need number one don't have one. That's why they're telling you that. But think about Boston. Did they have two number ones? But going in the playoffs last year, they'd gone back and forth like virtually every night. When in the playoffs, they play one of them, and it blows up on them. And should they have kept going back and forth? Anytime you're going to give me a number one. Now, I think there is a role, the type of number two you need. He needs to be comfortable. He needs to know he's going to play less if you've got a true number one. And, and you've got to have confidence in the locker room that he has a chance to win every game. It can't be like, our number two's in there tonight. And yet, more importantly, Andrew, you can't have the other team saying, great, we don't have their number one in there tonight. We got their number two, because then they start and thinking we're launching everything in the net. We're going to win this game. And that's just human nature. So it has changed. I don't know that it's changed for the better. I like the fact that I'm playing my number one more. What the ratio is, they sketch it out beforehand, but I'd like that sketch to be in pencil, because I'd like to erase sometimes and say, okay, we're going to break off here. And if it was, in fact, decided a couple of weeks ago that Brossoit would get that game, then you've got the flexibility to go back and say, no, we're going to play Hrabchak. He's on a roll. He says he feels good, shot ratio. So I don't know if you and I have ever chatted about this, but the whole Corsi idea, in my interpretation of it, came from Jim Corsi trying to get Ryan Miller nights off when he was the goalie coach in Buffalo. That's what started the Corsi rating. So, because they were saying, well, Miller only had 20 shots last night, and his goalie coach was arguing, but he had to prepare for 50 shots, because there were 15 blocked and 35 went wide, or something to that effect, 50 more shots than he actually faced. And so I think the workload ratio is a real thing, but I also believe that some guys are workhorses, and I think Connor Hrabchak is one of them.
Dave, I feel for Laurent Brossoit, because, of course, he came back to Winnipeg, signed that one-year deal at a time when it looked very likely that Connor Hrabchak probably would be at least playing the 1 year and gone, if not potentially being dealt in the offseason. Then he signs a 7-year extension, and there is no doubt who the number one guy is going forward. So I do feel for LB, because I think his situation is very different than it was when he signed the deal early on. from a perspective where you know you have your number one guy and that is going to be the guy you live and die with, what goes into trying to get starts for the backup that put him in the best chance to succeed and also keep him involved in part of it?
Large part of it depends on the backup. It depends on how good he is going in cold. What his just the game psyche is, or can he turn a really good practice into a model of a game for himself so he's ready to go next time he's called upon. But I think the art of having the perfect backup is a real challenge. It just is, because everybody wants to be number one, and yet everybody is number one, and he's had a chance to grab it. And, just if you win every game, somebody's going to force your way out of here. But, I think that a large part is up to the individual. There's no one recipe for it. I think the perfect situation is to have that number two that can play 25 games, maybe 20 games, but give you a chance to win every one of them.
Dave Poulin with us from TSN Hockey. Pooley, of course, last night a little disappointing to end it, but in the previous couple of weeks, probably since we spoke last, the team hadn't lost before. 2 great games against very good teams in Florida, kind of start off this road trip, coming off a real strong homestand. What have you seen over the course of the last couple of weeks of the Winnipeg Jets? And in particular, the different ways they seem to be winning games and all the different guys that are stepping up and really being a part of it.
The most impressive thing is the balance that you're getting right now across the board. The contributions from the defense. In a world where defensemen all of a sudden are allowed to lead the league in scoring, hey, okay, you've got to have guys contributing from the back end. And last night I clipped a bunch of stuff early that we didn't end up using about the play of the defenseman up ice, but from a defensive standpoint, to get the puck going the other way. And every single guy was clipped. DeMello a couple times, Sandberg a couple of times, Schmidt, right across the board, in terms of really being aggressive, standing up. Well, that gets the offense going. It gets it turned around, but it's allowed to because of the back-checking pressure of the forwards. It really is working in coordination. This defense has had a chance to grow together, and it's been 3 years now, the introduction of Dylan Sandberg, but 3 years for Schmidt and Dylan. Obviously, the leader in seniority is Josh Morrissey. But that group has worked together now, and they look like they've worked together. So that starts it. But up front, I talked about the third line to open with. The first line is benefiting from the third line because the third line's getting all these grinded out shifts. So the rotation's actually 3 followed by 1. You can do that at home. You can do that on the road, whatever. Because the other team has now played a shift in their end with that big Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton line just grinding it out down there. And there's a concept as well that I had a great example of last night. So you clip all these things that you don't end up using during the game, right? And I called it a wall shift. And there was a period of like 45 to 50 seconds in the first period when that third line didn't come off the wall more than 2 feet. It's just like they built a track around the inside of the rink in that end, and they weren't allowed to step outside of it. It was a moat, if you will. They were in the moat, and nobody wanted to go in there with them. And it was just such a great shift. And then Scheifele pours over the boards and gets a couple of scoring chances right out of it because the other team was just defended for 45 seconds or 50 seconds. Even if you're just defending your turf, even if it isn't a direct scoring chance, it's a real factor for that line. And then, we're seeing Nikolai Ehlers, I think, really trying to figure out what Cole Perfetti's going to do with the puck. Those guys that think the way those two think, sometimes that takes a little bit of time. And, you just don't go out and skate with a talented player like Perfetti and understand him the first time. First of all, he doesn't always know what he's going to do. So how do you know what he's going to do? And that wasn't the way I played when I skated with guys like that. And it was a nightmare for me. I'm like, you come to the bench and go, what are you thinking out there? Not for me.
Well, it's funny. Ehlers in the past, Dave, have been, listen, they've tried Ehlers with Scheifele at times before. He at times has been a little bit of a square peg round hole with some other players that you would think on paper would put together dynamic duos. but he and Perfetti are really, really fitting together well right now. However, every now and then he does what he did on Friday, where you don't need anyone else. You just basically take the puck behind your back, go around everyone, and score a highlight reel goal. How about that beauty from the Panthers win?
Nice concept for those that can do it. I've watched them firsthand, both for and against. The pickup from inside the blue line, so the little touch pass from inside the blue line, the reason that pass is made where it is to keep it away from the attacking defenseman who's trying to gap up. So your Perfetti, you put it in a place that's going to be, for the normal human, really hard to pick up. But he understands that Ehlers is capable of picking up that little swing behind his back with that puck and where it came out the other side. That builds the momentum through the neutral zone. And that's the thing, when you talk about playing with a player like that, it's you present yourself differently to me as a passer than you would to Cole Perfetti as a passer. Just flat out, he's capable of doing things that I wouldn't be. And, I was more of a hard line, straight on your tape pass. Perfetti's going to put it somewhere where he thinks you can pick it up, but also the defender can't defend against it. So I do think they're figuring each other out. I think it's only going to get better.
Well, speaking of Perfetti and Ehlers, Dave, this is going to be the big topic probably going into tomorrow night's game with the impending return of Gabriel Velarde. Is where does he go? And listen, good problems to have when you have a lineup that's played the way that they have with the wins that have come along with it while Velarde's been out. But the coaching staff's been very clear. Gabriel Velarde is a top 6 player. That's where he will go back. He left Scheifele and Connor. Iafallo's fit in there perfectly, and we've seen the production sort of follow. Do you move to Metstikov back to the fourth line where he started and move Velarde in on line 2 with Ehlers and Perfetti, or do you go back to the way things looked in the first couple of games with 55 and 81? A couple of intriguing options on both sides, but you do shake up one of the lines no matter what that has been rolling.
I think you shake up in your second presentation. I think you put Velarde back with Scheifele and Connor to start with, but you've got options. If you take Scheifele and Connor and say, okay, you might get Velarde in a given night, you might get Iafallo on a different night. How does that present matchup options that are hard for the other team? And which one presents itself better? So that's exactly what you want in depth, is Iafallo to be able to step right to the forefront and seemingly not miss a beat. But coming back, Velarde was a choice there for a reason, had success for a reason. That's what I would start with. And then go from there. Maybe build a line coming out of power play or penalty kill that gives Nemestikov a little bit more, and see where Iafallo fits in, or maybe put Iafallo down in the 4 spot for a little bit and see, how you could inject him in to the first couple of lines. So lots of options for them to work through, but I do think Gabe Velarde goes back with Scheifele and Connor.
If Iafallo does move off that top line, I still maintain that I think that third line of Adam Lowry in the middle with Nino Niederreiter and Iafallo might be the best wingers that Lowry's played with. But at the same time, since Mason Appleton has got the bump up, he's been scoring at a rate he's never had been before. And you've already mentioned it. The work that Lowry line has done with Appleton on it sort of speaks for itself. And that becomes a tough thing to break up for a coach.
But it presents different options as well. If you're playing against a team that's a little bit heavier, as a Florida was, then you want Appleton there. If you're playing against a team that might present a little bit more skill in that third line, then maybe you want Iafallo there. So I think the ability to move the pieces around is a pretty nice luxury to have, and it'll settle in. It'll find its course. It always does. And then you may run into 5, 6, 7 games where you say, okay, this has worked well, as Iafallo has with that top line. We're fine changing it up. It's not, I think as you get better as a team and you're 8-2 in your last 10, it's easier to present change. It doesn't look like, oh, we're desperate here, we've got to present change. The problem is you've got a guy that was injured who's coming back in the lineup. Well, that's not a problem. That's a pleasant issue to deal with.
Poulin tomorrow night, the Jets get another crack at the Dallas Stars. They played here in Winnipeg a couple weeks ago. Listen, a real good game. Thought the Jets played well. Fell just short with a quality opponent. You get the same team in your barn just a couple weeks later, and in the middle, you've been playing your best hockey of the year. Despite the loss, what do you think's going on in that room going into tomorrow, where they are confidence-wise, not to mention the potential return of Balharry, but another chance to measure themselves against a team that has been at the top of the Central Division pretty much all season long?
I believe it's all positive. It starts off a homestand. And by the way, that Dallas Stars logo stood out a little bit because it happened to be 8-1. And the one was a 3-2 loss to Dallas. So you get a nice little chance to change that now and just say, you know what, we're going to adjust this and we're going to go back at them. And we know how we play. We know the type of team they present. You're assuming Ottinger's in net. You know they're going to be hard along the wall. They're going to be physical with us. But that's all just rounding out our game. And I think we talked at the top of the show, and you brought it up about winning different types of games. That's what it is. That's what the challenge is. I mean, you go into a playoff series, against a certain team, you have to play a certain way. But if you're going to make a run, a long run in the spring, you've got to play different types of teams. And within a series, you might have to play different types of games. So that's the beauty of it right now, is that you're fully confident going in here and you're going to pick up, and actually where you pushed to last night. You pushed back into a game when a lot of things weren't going your way. You found a way to push back into that game last night and come close to tying it up.
Dave, on Thursday, it's the Oilers visit. And I mean, I know we've talked about that team so far. They've had many lows this year, but they did have on Friday probably their best game of the season. I mean, a 5-1 win in Washington against a team that was 8-1-1, I think, in their last 10. How important can one win in that fashion be for a team like Edmonton where nothing has gone right?
With the fragility of that group right now, they're taking anything they can get, and they pounded Anaheim in the next game, an Anaheim team that was out of sorts and managed to pound them on home ice. So, boy, it's been hard to figure out without a question. And then you watch Connor McDavid go from, 61st in scoring to the top 15 or whatever in a night, with his 5-point effort. I don't know. I still think they have the issues they had when they were going through their misery, if you will. I don't think everything's right. And I think if you're Winnipeg, you want a low event. You want to take them out of the thought that they're going to get 5 or 8, and you want to pound everything at their net because they have found a propensity to give up goals. You maximize that belief right from the start. You make them get back on their heels. It seems like they have not handled the wave very well when it's been coming at them. So as they walk in to Winnipeg, I make them think they're going to get the wave early, and you start it right on the first shift.
Dave, how salvageable is the Oilers season at this point, kind of at the quarter pole, 5 games above 500, ahead of only the San Jose Sharks in their division, knowing, though, that talent is in that room?
Well, they're the one team that, because they have 2 of the top players in the world, and Draisaitl place them up there, they're still capable of carrying a lot of people with them. They just are. And, when you look at it 2 different ways, if they're playing together, they're the best line in hockey. If they're not playing together, they each have a chance to make 4 other guys better. And so what the trickle down is, to me, it's more up to the rest of the group to see if they can maintain, but particularly if they can find some defensive structure. And it's unfair of a new coach who's 6 or 7 games in to say, what have you done defensively? Because they were so in disarray. And it was almost to the belief that they can't be this bad. Like, they can't. And yet they were on a given night. And, Woodcroft is saying it had to change. I mean, he didn't get a chance to fully engage that. He did, but he didn't. And so I don't think they're fixed yet, but because of the firepower they have, Andrew, it's hard to bet against those 2 guys specifically.
Well, I mean, listen, and they're in such a desperate situation, Dave, that that's going to be a team coming into Winnipeg and Canada Life Center on Thursday that I think will be approaching the game with, you would expect their situation would begat them approaching that game with the intensity of their season being on the line, although it's difficult to do that night in, night out for 4 to 5 months, which unfortunately for the Oilers is pretty much where they put themselves.
Well, I think they've done that. It just hasn't worked. And you were just, when you watched them play through that stretch, you were waiting for something bad to happen. And it did. It didn't disappoint you. Something was happening. Every time the puck went towards their net, it seemed to go in. You know, they don't have their goaltender situation worked out yet, I don't think. And so it remains to see what happens there. But the waters have calmed a little bit in terms of at least winning a couple of games and letting them breathe and letting them say, okay, we've got a chance here to be okay. But once again, with 97 and 29 in your lineup, you've got a chance.
Hey, Dave, before we go, speaking of that, we'll have the All-Canadian matchup on Thursday and looking forward to it. Have the TSN Hockey Gurus pressed you for a power poll of Canadian teams? When you compare all the teams in Canada right now, Vancouver has been number one. Are they still there? And how much of the Winnipeg Jets in the mix for maybe the best team in Canada right now as we get into the new month?
Well, they're at the top of the list. I mean, shockingly, and this is something, you know, when I heard this, I was like, wait a second. Toronto's only won 5, even like regular time games. 5. It's amazing. San Jose is the only team with less, you know, regular time games. It's amazing. The team of that, you know, offensive power. So they get some things to work out there, but I think it does fall right now, you know, back and forth, depending on the day of the week between Vancouver and Winnipeg. And Hrabchak has done a great job there of getting that on a different page and getting, you know, seemingly having everyone pulling in the same direction there. So if you're in that conversation and you're at the top of that list and Winnipeg and Vancouver are, then keep going.
Poulin, great stuff. I know we're going to see quite a bit of you on Jets broadcasts over the course of this month. You mentioned you were quite busy with the Panthers this week, but I think, what would you say, 5 games in December on Jet broadcasts?
Yeah, I think through the middle of next week. Maybe I'll catch the last part of the home fan. You can't ask me my schedule too far out in advance.
That's true.
That's too complicated. I'm working pretty short term. I've got the Leafs in Florida tomorrow, and then I zip to Montreal. I have Florida and Montreal on Thursday night.
Well, hopefully the Jets can continue playing at the level they have throughout the end of November, going into December when you're on more of the broadcast. Poulin, always great having you on the program. Thanks so much for doing this, and have a great day and great broadcast this week.
Thanks, Andrew. Enjoy your day.
All right, great stuff with Dave Poulin. Mike O'Shea spoke today. We'll check in with Hammer. I was going to maybe kind of transition to Jet stuff, but we'll certainly hit the Bomber off season as well. Coming up in just a minute. Gang, if you haven't already, get over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest and get your name in to qualify for our Wrapping Men's Health Month marble race at the end of Thursday's show, because we've got a hell of a prize here, folks, courtesy of Prairie Naturals and our great sponsors at Vita Health. This beautiful Trevor Linden autographed jersey, certificate of authenticity there for you, as well as the full line of Prairie Naturals supplements. You can see this right here. So we do have 2 more qualifiers to announce today. Let me get these up. Congratulations to Mike Crerar and Tanner Stepnuck. And we're doubling up qualifiers this week, so we'll do 2 more tomorrow, 2 more Wednesday, and 2 more last calls on Thursday. And the marble race will go at the end of Thursday's show. And the winner of the marble race will get this jersey, Linden jersey, as well as the full line of Prairie Naturals supplements. Of course, Men's Health Month is here. And Prairie Naturals is Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements, helping males address the challenges with prostate health, andropause, low libido, testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. On sale all month at Vita Health, 6 locations. The spot for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And don't forget, you can also shop online at their fully shoppable website at myvita.ca. But congratulations to Mike and Tanner. Get your entry in if you haven't already, and we'll announce 2 more qualifiers tomorrow and through the rest of the week. A big thanks to our friends at Wallace & Wallace for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, the fencing and overhead door specialists serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. Your overhead garage door had lots of ups and downs this summer and fall, but it is about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on your garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And I know many of you popped down to F Apparel over the last week to take advantage of those great Black Friday sales. You can check their website at fepapparel.com for Cyber Monday deals, as well as to make an appointment to get in and up your menswear game heading into the holidays in 2024. And fellas, if you are looking at maybe a new suit or some new clothes, maybe you mentioned that an F Apparel gift card might be a perfect gift for you when it comes to the tree this year. Custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, the best selection of menswear accessories in town. It's all there for you at 190 Smith Street. And again, make an appointment and find out more online at that's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's get the hammer in here and get this week off to a rousing start. Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. How are you? How are your picks this weekend?
I was actually, my picks were good this week. Me and Ted have a pick'em pool that we're partners in. I have a couple, but we have one that we're partners in. And with Grey Cup week craziness last week, he kind of took the reins and made the picks. And well, I don't really need to tell you or the listeners and viewers where we ended up that week. So I took over this week and we're heading into one final bout tonight. If Chicago covers, which I picked them to cover, then we have an outright win. Otherwise, I think we share with a few people. So my picks were quite good this week, actually.
Nicely done. It was a weird week. There was so many short spreads, like 1 point, 1.5. We actually went with the lock shot partner parlay. We just went straight winners, and we took Pittsburgh, we took the Rams, and Denver. So it was no sweat win, which was a very nice way to kind of get into the week.
Pittsburgh a little bit late, though. That one was holding on.
That's what they do every week.
Yeah, that's what they do every week.
They had 4 wins in the fourth quarter. They were losing going into the second half. But I mean, since he's so done now with the loss of Joe Burrow, and hopefully you fared better in the fantasy league this week than what happened last week at the hands of the Pat Pack. I took a shot at the Godfather, and I'll see you in the playoffs, Jeff.
I returned to my Godfather status this week. I'm not sure if you're checking other scores outside of your own Huss, but I think I certainly set another weekly high. I think I'm plugging it at about $1.60 this week. I had some good performances for sure. I got a little bit too cocky. I think I don't know if I'm back. I don't think I moved from first place for the first time in a long time to a tie for first place with you and Remo, I believe. 3 guys that are obviously the most in the know when it comes to NFL picks and amongst the media contingent. That's the right one we're talking about in this.
It has been a nice one. Remis Island is right up there at the top of the standings, along with the Pat Pack. I'm looking forward to a win today, and then the Godfather. So,
are you cruising to victory this week?
Yeah, I'm cruising to victory. I've got a 25-point lead. And I still have Addison, and then Joey's got Cole Kmet and the Minnesota defense. So 93% projected winner. I will take that. Hey, listen, before we get into this conversation of Mike O'Shea, let's play a couple. Well, we'll just play one clip, and then we can get back. We've got a couple of them. Mike O'Shea met the media today. Give himself a few days to get away from the Grey Cup loss, and now on to the offseason. Here's O'Shea on what he's been up to since last Sunday.
Yeah, the usual, meet with a pile of players, and it always falls right around American Thanksgiving, so guys are itching to get out of here and they want to have a chat first. So first couple of days is just sort of meeting after meeting after meeting, making sure the guys get what they need.
What was the
don't know, each meeting's probably different, but
Yeah.
how much of a different mood was it this year versus last year? Where I think there was a lot of people saying, let's run it back last year. Let's do it. What was the vibe this year?
I think the emotion's a little different, but the sentiment's the same. I think guys all believe we've got a good football team that can keep rolling.
Have you had a chance
I
to...
agree with them.
Yeah.
All right, there was Mike O'Shea along with Jeff Hamilton. Hammer, what was the coach like today? We've got a couple more clips, but listen, I mean, such a competitor, such a crushing way to lose the Grey Cup last week. Needed a few days. Lots of work had been going on behind the scenes. But what did you take from, before we talk about the important details going forward in the offseason, just how Mike's handling what was such a big disappointment for he and his squad?
Yeah, I think he's handling it the best way he knows how to, and that's probably suppressing a lot of it. He hasn't gone through that torturous task of going through the game film play by play, which he insists he'll do when the time's right. Mike O'Shea says a lot of things like, I don't think that way, or players don't think that way, or people don't think that way. Often it's something about like legacy, right? When you talk about some players' legacies, he doesn't think about that stuff. He doesn't think about records, but make no mistake, there's absolutely no doubt that he's been thinking about this game since the moment it ended, probably trying to find ways to distract himself. But, just with how they lost, in an eerily similar fashion to, the 2022 Grey Cup defeat against the Toronto Argonauts, it's just, it stings, of course. And, he certainly admitted to that. I mean, he wasn't denying the fact that it stings. He even said that he, probably years down the road, he's just going to yell out a primal scream thinking, we could have done it, and so, he feels every last bit of it. I mean, and this team's a reflection of Mike O'Shea, right? Even asking the players in the garbage bag day if this year could be viewed as a success, obviously only one team wins, but just given what they've achieved this year and getting back to the Grey Cup for a fourth straight year and guys to a man, and O'Shea today essentially said, not yet. And so you can certainly tell that he's wearing the defeat for sure.
Well, and here's another clip from the coach. He was asked if he's been able to go back and watch the game, as just alluded to. Here's what he had to say.
Not with a fine-tooth comb, but yeah, I've seen a few plays.
Where are you at with that loss?
I've said this before. I think these stick with you forever. So I imagine at some point down the road, even years from now, I'll just all of a sudden let out some sort of primal scream and say, damn, like, had a chance, But they, once again, as I said after the game, credit to Montreal, they certainly made a few more plays than we did. Especially at the end, yeah.
Not going to ask you about your hierarchy of pain, but how difficult is this one to get past? I know last season was a very difficult one for you. Or is that?
Yeah, they're all there. They're all wrapped up into one nice little package. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. You believe you got the team that can win. Obviously, the way we played all season long says that we certainly had a good opportunity, and we didn't end up winning. So I think the emotion around it's a little different, right? I mean, the end of the game scenario is, you lose at the end, the same sort of fashion, but two completely different plays. But you feel sick when you relive both of them.
That, to be honest, is unlike anything we've really seen in the last few years, just considering that incredibly long free agent list. And I think that the speculation that, as you just pointed out, maybe everyone wasn't talking about running it back this year. They kind of did that last season and fell just short.
Yeah, and that was kind of the vibe of the locker day room, locker room day. It's one of those things where there's no secret here that this team's has an aging core. I mean, can you make the argument that they got one more season in them? I think you can. I think a lot of players did just that. I think they did go into those meetings and said, I want to be back. I want to go at this another year. I want to continue this run we've been on, even though they haven't been able to get the job done the last 2 years. But there is inevitable change. There's going to be guys, I'm sure, that went in there that didn't like their opportunity this year, that might be looking for opportunities elsewhere. There's going to be guys in there, most certainly. I mean, Mike even said that today, that there's some guys I imagine have somewhat kind of announced their retirement. That would be pure speculation at this point. But a lot of eyeballs on a guy like Stanley Bryant, who's 36, 37 years old. I think he's going to be 38 by next season. What a great career he's had. I mean, arguably the best defensive lineman ever to play the game. What's his future have in store? He wasn't there for locker day cleanout. So there's some questions around his future and other players' futures. And, I think the number is 35 players right now. The other thing too, and take into consideration, is you have to fit all these players under a salary cap. A lot of guys, notably guys like Rasheed Bailey, took pretty significant pay cuts to stay with the team. Are they willing to do that again this season? Other factors include coaching staff. I mean, you look at, we'll touch on this stuff, but you look at Kyle Walters, you look at the coaching staff in Buck Pierce, who clearly has, interest across the league and is no doubt a candidate for the Saskatchewan Roughriders job. I think he interviews this week if he hasn't already interviewed. But you look at the, general manager Kyle Walters not having a contract for this year. And I know we're going to get into that part, but assistant GMs Ted Gavaya and Danny McManus also don't have, contracts. So there's a lot of difficult decisions to be made if you go back to the roster. I mean, while a lot of guys want to come back, can you again fit them under the salary cap, and B, might there be some hard decisions to be made to give opportunities for younger guys, cheaper options, right? That's another thing that needs to be factored into all this, is that, a player might want to return, but are they getting the best out of that player for another season, right? As you mentioned, I mean, a lot of these guys really put in that, this past off season, worked really hard to get back and kind of make this be their final dance, if you will. No one really openly says that. And I think if you look at the Grey Cup bid, I think, Wade Miller would have really wanted to get the 2024 Grey Cup, not the 2025 Grey Cup, just for that reason, to entice players to come back for another season, or to give them that extra push and motivation to work all winter and come back. But while Mike O'Shea's head is pretty busy right now, kind of processing and going through the film, it's only going to get busier here in the coming weeks and months as they figure out who's calling the shots and what shots are going to get called here as they try to get back to this, try to bring back a lot of the same team, but at the very least bring back as competitive as a team as they've had for years.
Well, we'll talk about the player personnel in a minute. We've got one more clip from Coach on that. But, I mean, let's start with the organization itself. Kyle Walters, I believe he said he expects him back, but I guess there's still work to be done. And what did he say, and what are you hearing about Buck Pierce and his future?
Yeah, I think Buck Pierce has hit a point in his life with his family that he's open to the opportunity, right? Open to another opportunity to be or open to the opportunity to be a head coach. There's been years in the past where he's been asked to interview for a head coaching job, and he didn't even get to that step. It just tells you, where he was at, and both as a professional and then certainly personally with his wife Lori and their kids. So I think Mike O'Shea said today, when you have conversations about opportunities to grow in the game, you kind of morph from colleagues and into friends. And I think that's the advice for him, is to do what's best for Buck and his family, and whatever decision, whatever happens. I mean, I think if you ask Mike O'Shea, he certainly, while he wants to see his staff become head coaches like he was once, right? I mean, he was a special teams coordinator in Toronto and made his way to Winnipeg. He would never stunt the growth of any of his staff, but it would be interesting, right? Because you look at Buck Pierce, if he does, ultimately get that job in Saskatchewan, who might follow and might come with him? I look at a guy like Jordan Younger, who is on the defensive staff. He's a guy that is a DC in waiting, and there's been reports linked to those two in the event that Buck gets a head coaching job. That's the guy he would bring with him. So that would have a ripple effect to things. But with Kyle Walters, I mean, that's kind of where things start. I mean, this is under normal circumstances, and I say normal being everybody under contract, everybody knowing what the future looks like. Those strategy plans for the offseason would begin now. Those have been halted. Those haven't happened yet. And so you need some clarity on you need some clarity on Kyle Walters. You need some clarity on the assistant general managers and Ted Gavaya and Danny McManus, because why would those guys work for the next 3 weeks for a year that they don't even know they're employed for? So, Mike did admit to the challenges behind that. And I mean, a lot of that falls under the non-football operations cap and the frustration that the Bombers are feeling right now, trying to fit everybody under that. So it certainly is, there's a lot of questions and few answers right now, questions that are going to eventually get answers, but some things need to happen. Some obvious things need to happen, like putting the people in place to call the shots before any strategizing for 2024 can even begin.
What about Walters? And I mean, the situation, like what's going on behind the scenes, and is there a contingency plan if that doesn't happen?
I imagine there's some kind of contingency plan. I mean, especially when you think of the non-football operations cap, like there's only so much money you can fit there. So if you look at the Bombers, like Mike O'Shea gets paid a lot of money. Mike O'Shea is just the head coach. He's not the head coach and the GM and the VP of football operations or the defensive coordinator. He's just head coach. So there's a lot of people to pay off here, and I'm not suggesting that Mike O'Shea would be would slide into the GM role like we've seen in other markets, like Edmonton and Calgary with Dave Dickinson. I just don't think Mike O'Shea would be a qualified GM, to be quite frank with you. I think his loyalty to the players is too strong, and as a GM, you need to make some tough decisions. And we've seen, not just in the Grey Cup game with Mike and, playing guys like Adam Bighill, who obviously weren't 100%, and Dalton Schoen, who is better, but still not 100%. I mean, that loyalty kind of needs to, I don't want to say goes completely out of the window when you're a general manager, but you can't really take emotion into a lot of the business stuff. And so that's just a long roundabout way of saying I don't think Mike could play that role, or at least do it well. Whereas a contingency plan, I mean, perhaps there's, opportunity for Ted Gavaya, who's been linked as a potential GM across the league. I believe it was Mark Killam when he was applying for the Edmonton Elks, had Ted Gavaya as his GM. I believe that's the right duo. I know he's been connected for sure. Perhaps there's an opportunity to go to one of those guys who would take the raise as assistant GM to the GM salary rather than, Kyle Walters, who's, obviously part of the group that's gotten his team to 4 straight Grey Cups, taking a raise. So there would be a difference in money there. But I mean, if you're asking me to look into my magic vase here, crystal ball, I think Kyle Walters returns. I think he comes back at an okay price point for the team and continues to do his job. I just don't, as much as there must be a contingency plan, I don't think it's as smooth as just signing the guy who's kind of been in the chair since the beginning.
Yeah, well, no, exactly right. And Walters has been such a big part of this era of Blue Bomber football. I mean, you'd love to see him keep the band back together. And, if that means a McManus or a Gavaya moves on and they have to fill that position, I think it's probably in the best interest of the club. Of course, we talked, there's the staff, but there's also the player personnel question. And all you need to do is look at that list of free agents, and everything seemingly is pretty much on the table. Remo, if you want to grab this last clip, this was O'Shea talking about just approaching this offseason maybe in a little bit of a different way as opposed to other off seasons, with how many free agents are available on the market if they aren't re-signed by Winnipeg. Here it is.
I think, first of all, we need to get together and get a strategy and figure out, have our roster meetings, which we haven't had yet, and figure out how we want to proceed. There's always going to be change. It's the way it is. We say this every single year. Every coach in pro sports says it every single year. Some guys can't do it again. Some guys don't want to do it again here, and a lot of guys will want to be back, but still have to try and fit that into a cap situation.
Coming up with an off-season strategy, how difficult is that, knowing Kyle's on an expiring deal, Ted and Danny are on an expiring deal? Can you get anything done looking at 2024 until those kind of loose ends are tied up?
Honestly, not right now. Yep.
How unique is that for this organization? Usually it takes signing guys at this point.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah.
What's your sense of where that's heading?
I'm sure they're communicating and having talks, yeah.
Do you have a timeline on when that
I
might
do
get
not.
settled?
No, I do not.
Urgent? Is there a sense of urgency in your part that let's get this going?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of trust in this organization.
Yeah.
Interesting back and forth there, Hammer, in that, you and Freeze are asking, obviously, the questions that needed to be asked, but, unlike, not that he gives you everything that he actually knows during the regular season, but he really had a tough time answering those questions because it really does seem like most of those things are out of his hands. And while he'll still have part of an influence on all of those decisions, I'm sure where he stands is very clear to Wade Miller. And now it's time to figure out the other side of the operation that, the coach works with, but doesn't necessarily call the shots for.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing. Mike O'Shea has a lot of say, has a lot of influence. I'd almost argue just as much, and in some cases more, than Kyle Walters. So I think if you look at what Mike's saying, if you read between the lines a little bit, and even if you go further into the tape as we continue to talk about the non-football operations cap, there's a clear frustration on his part, right? I mean, the non-football operations cap was brought in, a few years ago since COVID to kind of put a curb on spending, right? I mean, there were those years in Saskatchewan where you'd show up to that 1 year in particular sticks out, where it was the first year of CFL week, and so they coincided the combine with this week, and players had interviews, with the various staffs for different teams, and the Chris Jones led Rough Riders had their general staff, and it had about 25 extras in green with Grey Goose bottles and just like a little bit of it was more than an entourage. It was like an entire team full of coaches that were in these meetings, that were pressing, that were just working for the club. And so I think that kind of triggered the league to look at the spending, right? Because this was all brought in by presidents. This isn't the league coming down. This isn't Randy Ambrosie seeing spending going through the roof and going, I'm going to stop this. This is the presidents and the owners of the team going, this is getting out of control. It's creating a bit of a competitive edge for those teams that are in a financial position to spend more money, because there was obviously no cap on coaching staff. And so it created a little bit of a monster, or created a situation where you could at least curb spending and create that balance. But I think what has happened, at least, to Winnipeg, unfortunately for Bomber fans, is that this rule ultimately punishes successful teams. You look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers; they've gone to 4 straight Grey Cups. Why shouldn't Mike O'Shea be the highest paid head coach in the CFL? Why shouldn't Buck Pierce be the highest paid offensive coordinator in the CFL? Why shouldn't Richie Hall be the most expensive defensive coordinator, and so on and so forth through the staff? And that includes Kyle Walters. Why shouldn't he be the most expensive GM? Well, the answer is simple. The non-football operations cap prevents, these guys from being the highest paid, people in their position. And so it's created, well, I think they've been able to get by with let's continue this dynasty. Let's continue this run. Let's see how special this can be. I think the reality of 2 losses back to back and the potential of this team looking, much different next season is kind of forced guys to look elsewhere, forced guys to stop taking hometown discounts, stop taking haircuts on their contracts, and to try to maximize their value. You're only at the top of the mountain for so long, and it takes a few only a few seasons, maybe even just one, to kind of fall off it. As I mentioned a guy like Mark Killam in Calgary earlier. He was a guy who was being touted as the next big head coach, the obvious head coach, the players coach. Well, a couple of bad seasons in Calgary, no one's really singing his praises anymore, and I'd be surprised if he got a job. So I think guys need to maximize that. There's guys who are in lower positions. I mentioned like a Jordan Younger who works with the DBs and works with the defense. I mean, are you taking over for Richie Hall? I don't think so. I think Richie Hall wants to come back for another season. So it just gets to a point where you find yourself, much like Buck Pierce has found himself in wanting to become a head coach, that you're ready to take the next step. And that next step, unfortunately for those guys, isn't, where they've been. I imagine all those guys would love to continue to grow within the Bombers organization, but the opportunity is just not there. And so the frustration over the non-football operations cap was very palpable with Mike. It's something that he said he went to the league and proposed for it to be changed and ultimately got too bad. Probably didn't even get his calls answered, to be honest with you, because the league wants to maintain this, which means there's enough leadership in the CFL, team owners and presidents, that want this to remain. What the effects will be, will continue to be down, in the future. We'll have to wait and see, but we're certainly seeing it in Winnipeg and trying to retain a lot of great talent.
Hey, one other question about the future of the team, and it relates to the Grey Cup, not next season, but the following season that's here in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. When we look at this roster, you realize, there's a number of guys that are on the back nine, some guys considering retirement. Knowing that is inevitable over the next couple of years. And listen, when they get to training camp, the goal is going to be to win the West again and get back to the Grey Cup. We know that. But because the team is hosting the game in 2025, do you think that there's a potential that may shape some of the decisions this year, that maybe they move on earlier from some other players, get younger players in that will be even more prepared to be at a championship level in the season the team is hosting? Or is it always just on the next year, the next game, and going 1-0, to use a Bomberism?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting question, Huss, and I think there would be some teams out there, not led by Mike O'Shea, that would consider, that kind of thinking where, you're thinking of maybe a year in advance. Or at least some of the decisions you're making might be based on, you're not going to be taking a player who's significantly, less impactful on the field because you hope that they're going to be better in over a year, but you might be making some of your decisions based on what, that player might be able to do in 2025, in this case, for the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. Mike O'Shea doesn't think past the day, let alone the season. So I can't imagine, if he continues to kind of call the shots for this team and the roster decisions, that he's going to be at all interested in building for 2025. This guy, is reeling from the last 2 years. There's nothing he wants more than to return in 2024. And I don't even want to say prove critics wrong. I don't think that's the right phrasing. I think it's just, or whether you want to call it redemption or whatever, he just wants to get back to winning. He wants to get back to putting together, the best possible football team. And I think when he looks at this core that he has, he feels like he can do that for another year. He feels like if they can bring in the same team, that they can have the same results and then review that next season. I don't see, Wally Bono used to say, I'd rather get rid of a guy a year early than a guy a year late. And I just don't think Mike O'Shea thinks anything like that. Remember, this is a guy who still to this day hasn't retired. He was up there on the podium with, for Toronto, and they said he was retiring, but he's never retired. He would never, he's never signed his papers. He says, they force you out of the game. So that's his mindset. And he certainly, with that mindset, is not looking to, build for a season that isn't the one that he's competing in. So, Mike O'Shea will continue to handle those decisions, will continue to have the influence that he has for as long as he's here. And as long as he's here, I can't see decisions being made, with a Grey Cup in mind in Winnipeg in 2025.
No, it's a good point. Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press with us here. Hey, are you available to join us a week from Wednesday? Big WST holiday party in support of the Christmas cheerboard. think we might be breaking out that bubble hockey game there too. There could be a few challenge matches involving some members of the Winnipeg media if you're able to join us, Hammer.
What's the number? I don't go by days of the week. I go by
December
numbers of the month.
6th. December 6th. And there it is, by the way. If you're jumping on later on, link in the description, link at winnipegsportstalk.com. Every cent is going to the cheerboard. Boston Pizza's bringing some pies over. DQ Nick's going to have some ice cream treats. We'll enjoy some great Little Brown Jug beers. We're going to do a raffle there with some stuff from Little Brown Jug to raise a little more money. It should be a very, very fun and festive night.
I don't see why not, Huss. Why not? I'll come down there if there's room for me, for sure. Let's do this.
There absolutely is. There'll be a lot of happy people in the chat.
Yeah,
hey, just quickly on the way out, and we're going to talk about this with Connor and Remo in a minute, but last night's loss notwithstanding, what have you thought about the Winnipeg Jets through 20 games, pretty much the quarter pole of the season?
How can you not like what you see? I mean, this is a team that obviously in their current position right now is fighting for top spot in the Central. They're playing a style of game that I think is sustainable for long-term success. They seem like they bought into what Rick Bowness wants them to play. I thought Scott Arniel did a tremendous job with Rick Bowness, obviously away from the team with his with the health issues that his wife Judy was having. I just think all around, man, maybe a little bit of better special teams, particularly on the penalty kill. But just, when was the last time we were talking about the Jets being as dominant at 5-on-5 hockey as we are these last, couple months here? And I will say this, I think it's much different than what we were watching at this time last year, right? The Jets had a pretty strong start to the season last year, and we're fighting for top spot in and around this time. But this just feels different. It feels, the contributions that they're getting up and down the lineup, the depth that they have, it just seems like, they're almost convinced that they should win every game. That's what every team wants to get to, is that confidence where they feel like they're, not just competing in every game, but they should win. Maybe that's a little bit premature talk here, but you can see that confidence, and you can see, up and down the lineup, Mark Scheifele having, a great season so far, Kyle Connor the same, the new players, Nino Niederreiter. I mean, that's what you need to be a good team and be a consistent team. You need to have everybody who knows their specific role on the club, but is willing to play within a system so that everybody looks the same. Not everyone's being asked to do the same thing, but everybody's asking to look the same under certain situations. And we've seen a level of discipline and consistency that I don't think we've seen ever with this team. And it makes you think that if they can continue like this, it could be just a fantastic year for fans, that after a few kind of duds, it's certainly something that they deserve.
Hammer, great stuff. Enjoy the Monday nighter. Good luck with your you and Ted in your pool tonight. And we'll look forward to catching up next week and having a few with you at LBJ for the festive gathering for the cheerboard as well on the 6th. Thanks for doing this, buddy. Yeah, right on. Look forward to it, and appreciate all the time you can give me to talk about the local sports scene, Huss. So we'll do it again next week. Love it, buddy. Cannot wait. There's Jeff Hamilton. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff K. Hamilton. Of course, he'll have a piece, I'm sure, in the paper tomorrow about the Bombers' upcoming off season. I did see all caps Kyle in the chat saying we should do some sort of tin for the bin for this event as well. I don't know whether we'll actually be collecting food, but as I mentioned, every cent from the tickets, which I believe are $11.98, will include a slice and a DQ treat as well. So every cent from that is going to the cheerboard. Little Brown Jug's going to give us a package that we will be doing raffle tickets, probably $10 for 5. And I think we'll probably put together a prize or two, maybe even lean on one of our other sponsors to really make it a great one. But the other thing, our friends at Little Brown Jug that night, if you're able to, will be collecting mittens, hats, scarves, and boots for the Bear Clan Patrol, Inc. in their efforts to keep the city's vulnerable population warm this winter. So hope you will all join us at Little Brown Jug next Wednesday. Link is in the description. We will have limited space available, so grab your tickets. And again, it'll reserve your spot and every cent going to the cheerboard for those in need at this holiday season. All right, I'm looking forward to this next segment. We're going to chop it up. A three-way dance for you wrestling fans out there, because Connor Hrabchak's going to join us. But of course, just had a great segment talking about the Bomber off season. It will be a long one for Bombers and their fans, but cannot wait to get back to the stadium next week, and heck, before even a game, to the Princess Auto tailgate party. What a great supporter Princess Auto's been of us, and of course our local CFL team. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West in town, and you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Well, Black Friday was a zoo over at Royal Sports, as you would imagine, but they've still got many great deals heading into the holiday season. As you get ready to strike off those names off of your Christmas list, head on down to 750 Pembina Highway, and every sports fan, Jet fan, Bomber fan in your circle, you'll be able to take care of with one stop down at Royal Sports, the ultimate sports superstore with thousands of pieces of Jets merch, Bomber merch, including many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else, as well as the entire National Hockey League, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, World Soccer. And as we get into the winter, the best selection of skates in town and hockey equipment top to bottom for players of all age groups and skill levels. It needs to be seen to be believed. But get on down there for your holiday shopping at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great holiday gift ideas. And hey, we will get to a little NFL talk coming up with Connor and Reem. Big Monday nighter tonight for you Vikes fans, and no better place to get together with the gang than your local Boston Pizza. Of course, the game will be on all the big screens with big sound, happy hour specials all night, your chance to win a jersey, and a season-ending trip to Las Vegas. And of course, chow down on those world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and enjoy a few ice-cold schooners as well. Boston Pizza, the place to be for Monday Night Football. And a big thanks to BP as well for their support of our Christmas Cheerboard fundraiser coming up next week at Little Brown Jug. All right, let's get Remo in here to return. And Remo, we've been waiting to do this for a while, and it is a perfect time to tease tonight's launch of the latest Winnipeg Jets This Week, done by Connor Hrabchak, who's done such a good job on that part of the channel. It was about time we got the band together and chop it up after a big weekend, both on the Jets and, of course, NFL news and more.
Yeah, the Mondays show, I think, are so much fun, Huss. There's always so much to talk about. We have the Jets with the 2 games and the big homestand NFL. The baseball hot stove certainly heating up. And I did enjoy the Bombers offseason, because where does the team go from here? Every team has a ton of free agents, so I wonder what changes we see around the league. So definitely no shortage here.
Well, let's make this a three-way dance, to use a WWE term, and bring the kid in. 3 generations of WST right here for the first time together. And again, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast, because later on tonight, as soon as it's up, we'll be firing out. Normally it comes out on Monday morning, but of course with the game last night, I wanted to get us all set up for Tuesday against the Dallas Stars, and that will be here. And let's bring in Connor Hrabchak to join the party. Connor, what's going on? Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just put the finishing touches on episode 5 of Jets This Week, and it'll be out later tonight. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to it, folks. If you haven't checked it out already, we'll fire that up after the show a little bit later on today on the channel. And, Remo and I chopped it up at the start of the program, talking about last night, kind of a tough loss to end a road trip where the team had been playing so well. What were your takeaways from the 3-2 loss that ended the winning streak?
Yeah, I mean, they were playing so good and so consistently that was just kind of a rough way to end it. It would have been nice to sweep the road trip, especially against Nashville. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now, 5 straight wins. But I see people in chat freaking out about Laurent Brossoit. That's a big question mark. But yeah, I thought they played great in the third, and they started the game well. I think they jumped out to an 11-3 shot advantage. But yeah, too little too late on that push at the end, and you lose to one of the hottest teams in the league. So be it.
Well, and listen, this is partly my own fault because God knows I talked about it a lot last week. So, and again, it was sort of first things first. It was get Hellebuyck on that role that he really seemed to be on through those games. But Reem, I'm sure it was a tough decision for Rick Bowness, and maybe a little different for Bones because he'd been away from the team as long as he had been, to just go back with the regular plan. But as Connor mentioned, that first period, I mean, UC Saros to me was the difference in that game. And then you combine it with a softie that put the team down 2. It's hard not to look at last night's game and sort of kind of key in on goaltending as maybe the biggest factor as to why the winning streak was completed.
Yeah, like I don't want to dump on a guy, and people were saying, oh, you used the thumbnail of today's show on YouTube as a picture of Laurent Brossoit, take his mask off, kind of looking like up at the ceiling. Look, that was just a great picture that I had to, I could not use it, but it was certainly a story, yesterday in the game. How could you not talk about it? The Jets out-shooting Nashville 12-3, 10 minutes in. They had, Perfetti walks down the middle with a chance. You had the top line there with a barrage of chances, and Saros shut the door. And then you look on the other end, Roman Josi takes a shot from the boards down low, and it squeaks in, and Nashville's raising their hands like they couldn't believe that such a harmless shot went in. And again, you look at Money Puck, you go to goalies, goals saved above expected, and look, you have to scroll pretty close to the bottom of the league to find Laurent Brossoit, and this is a cumulative stat. That's not even a rate stat, which means he's only played 5 games, and his goals saved above expected -4.2. When you convert it to a rate stat, it's not very good. He's letting in, almost a bad goal a game according to expected goals. So, you don't really need the analytics to see that the second one yesterday not great, and I'm sure he'll rebound. I think he'll eventually go back to revert to his career numbers, but certainly a tough one there yesterday.
Well, and you know what? And here's the thing, and I get it. Like Ken will say, hey, you got to play LB more to get him in his groove. But Connor, I kind of made this argument last week that, at certain points in the season, when your number one guy is feeling it, it's tough not to put him back in the lineup. And it is a very difficult decision. And again, it looks worse last night because he let in a horrible goal that ended up being a big, big part of, a 1-goal loss. But I mean, this team will go as far as Connor Hellebuyck takes them. My hope, though, is that the team can build off this start, not falter in the second half of the season the way they have the last couple of years. And there'll be plenty of rest for Connor Hellebuyck once the team has locked down a playoff spot, as opposed to last year where he had to play the last 13 games, I believe, because basically every game was a playoff game for the Winnipeg Jets, who were clinging to that final spot with for their lives.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't reach that point with Laurent Brossoit, they'll be just fine. And I don't think they will. Laurent Brossoit is a proven goaltender in this league. He's had a rough first 5 starts, but he'll get back on track. He maybe just needs a run of games, just like Connor Hellebuyck did. He got a few games in a row, and he looks like himself. But yeah, I agree with you. It's tough because Hellebuyck comes off arguably his best game of the year, that shutout against Florida. And then you don't want to run him into the ground too early in the season, so you play Brossoit, and then it ends up being that way. But I still think it was the right decision. You don't get the 2 points, you don't get the win, so maybe it looks bad. He gives up the bad goal. But Hellebuyck playing 65-plus games is not a recipe for success. Like, he can't get burnt out in the first round.
You need
of the
him 65, 66, or 67.
Okay, no, but I don't think we've seen this team play this good at 5-on-5, and we've seen the way that they can play in spite of Connor Hellebuyck being his usual self, that if you can get that, you can get Hellebuyck back, which he's looking back now. You can get that come playoff time. I think that's what's most important. So I think you've got to play Brossoit 20 games at least.
Yeah, listen, he'll get the 20 games, I'm sure. And again, I think their ability to play him more towards the end of the season will depend on their ability to stay where they are in the standings, unlike what happened last year, which I think was somewhat of a unique situation. But listen, Remis and Connor, you're getting this question next, but first I'm going to put it to the chat. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Let us know in the chat a letter grade for the Winnipeg Jets' first 20 games this season, and who is your quarter season MVP of the Winnipeg Jets? And Reem, I'll throw this to you first up. Not an easy question. I think we're going to see some very nice grades for the team's first 20 games. But man, when you try and break down an MVP of this team, well, again, I think it speaks to how deep this team is and how much contribution they've had from so many different guys that, I mean, I don't think there's one guy that just stands out head and shoulders above everybody else.
Wow, what a question, Huss. And as far as grades, I mean, grades relative to expectation, I think you got to give them A+. But as far as actual grade, I think I'll go an A. I think they've been excellent 5-on-5. I mean, they're in a playoff spot. They're hanging neck and neck with Colorado and Dallas. But I thought Rick Bowness in his assessment was dead on. He's like, yeah, 5-on-5, we've been great, but special teams need to be better. And that's what's kind of holding me back from an A+. You look at power play percentage, 19.4%. That's 20th in the NHL. But it's kind of funny. Colorado, who we say is this world beater, they're just ahead of them at 19th, 19.8%. But penalty kill, which was so good last year, is the bottom in the league, 28th, 73%. That is not good, Huss, but good thing for the Jets. The season is 82 games, and they've only played 20. We'll see how it evens out. Man, if I had to pick an MVP, I think there's so many options. Connor Hellebuyck seems to be the default choice for this team, but he hasn't had a whole set of games here. Kyle Connor is leading the team in points, 23, 14 goals. Mark Scheifele up there. But I think I'm going to go with Josh Morrissey. He is far and away the number one defenseman on this team. He's third on the team in points, 19 and 20. Had a bit of a slow stretch. He leads the team in minutes per game. And I think without him, they don't have that A+ number one defenseman. So I'm going to go with Josh Morrissey. I'll go with him, and I'll end it there and let you guys. So I'm going to pick Morrissey as MVP.
I like it. Okay, Connor, we'll put it to you. Great letter grade for the first 20 games, and gun to your head, you have to pick one guy. Who's the MVP so far for the first quarter?
Yeah, the letter grade, I think relative to expectation, like Remis said, it's A+. I mean, we were expecting this team to be a bubble team. Most people were. And here they are fighting for first. That game against Dallas for Tuesday is for first in the Central.
Wait
so
for tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. But yeah, I think relative to expectation, A+. I'll really go with A-. I will say that penalty kill number will go hand in hand with Hellebuyck getting back to form. Him having a sub 900 save percentage probably put a big emphasis on that penalty kill number being under 70% at times. He gets back up to, his usual Vezina levels, that number's going to climb. The power play, maybe Gabe Vilardi is like an injection of life into that first unit, and they start to climb as well. But through first 20 games, I mean, you can't really ask much more of this team. They're in the race for first in their division. Connor Hellebuyck hasn't even been that great up until the last two games, and the special teams have been a big fault. That just speaks to how good they've been 5-on-5. And then team MVP. I was going to say Josh Morrissey as well, but just to be different and kind of switch it up, I'll go with Kyle Connor. I mean, another easy pick. He's in contention for the league leading goals. I don't really have to say much else. I will say Mark Scheifele is kind of a dark horse pick for that. He's been a big reason why Kyle Connor is in the race for that. He's set him up a ton, and his defensive game has taken a few steps forward, I think, this year. So Mark Scheifele is a dark horse, but I'll go with Kyle Connor.
You know what? It's funny that longtime listeners know, I mean, I had been one of Mark Scheifele's biggest critics over the last couple seasons, with things that were missing that we knew were there. I can't believe we're here 20 games in with the team battling for first place with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor signed on long-term contracts. But I mean, I think the play of Scheifele night in and night out, I mean, he's the key to putting Connor in the position that he's at, and the chemistry that those guys have has been phenomenal. But it's so much more to Scheifele's game, his attitude, his engagement. His commitment to be a better defensive player that I think is rubbing off on Kyle Connor as well, that we saw some big time examples of last week as they continue this winning streak. So I remember saying before, I'd love to be wrong on some Scheifele take. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm very happy to be wrong and very happy to give him the nod as the MVP, because I think so much of what he's doing, not necessarily, tied for the league in scoring right now in the club, it was affecting everybody else, and that's exactly what the team noted. And listen, I'm just looking at chat. We've got some great feedback from a lot of people. If I wasn't going to say Mark Scheifele, I think along the same tone, I might be giving the nod to Adam Lowry. And Adam Lowry and that line, if you think about when the Jets really started playing well and getting those wins after kind of a tough start, that was the line that put the team on its back. And night in and night out, even if they're not scoring, they're such a big part. So I think Lowry gets some consideration as well as what he's doing as a captain and as a leader right now. But much like we said, good problems to have, like the coach trying to figure out where to put Gabriel Velarde back in when he returns to the lineup. Good problem to have that you can't really nail down who an MVP is because you've got so many legitimate candidates coming out of the first 20 games of the season.
Yeah, and I don't want to say this guy is an MVP, but I want to give a shout out to Cole Perfetti. He's fourth on the team in points right now. And last year he had an amazing season. I think he would have been up for a Calder nomination if he didn't get injured. And among rookie leaders in points, but he's really given that second line some of the scoring depth that we've been talking about. He's paired nicely with Ehlers and Nemestikov, and now he's getting time on power play one. Him being on a rookie contract, having this type of season is huge for the team's success. And look, he had some great shots yesterday. His ice time is going up. He's being given more responsibilities. I think watch out for him to have more of an impact as the season goes on. A big Cole Perfetti guy here. He's establishing himself really nicely here in the NHL.
Well, and listen, I don't know whether it's a complete surprise because, hey, he was drafted 10th overall. These were the hopes. But Connor, for a player that, hadn't played a full season, there was some major questions as to whether he could handle the rough and tumble nature of the NHL grind. I would have to say that the way Cole Perfetti has played and produced so far this year has maybe been the biggest development that was, I don't want to say somewhat unexpected, for it to be this good this quickly. Another massive part of the reason why you see the Jets pushing the Avalanche and Stars at the top of the Central.
Yeah, you're bang on with that. And I hate to remind people, but he's in a contract year. Like, the more goals he scores, the more assists, that price is just going up. It's just, I'm sure Jets fans would be.
That's good.
Exactly.
That's,
yeah. That's what I was going to say. I'm sure Jets fans don't mind the fact that he's putting all these goals in the net. But yeah, he's driving up the price of that next contract. But he's been a huge X factor, like you said. The top line, Kyle Connor, like I just said, top of the league in goals. The Adam Lowry line, like you said, been dominant on the cycle defensively throughout the whole year. That second line has kind of flown under the radar, and Cole Perfetti with it. 17 points in 20 games, I think it is. It's incredible for a 21-year-old, like you said, who had questions coming into the year of whether or not he could handle the toughness. Him and Nikolai Ehlers have great chemistry together, and I hope they stay together through the Velarde insertion here because they've been great.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think Ehlers and Perfetti are staying together. I don't think there's any question about that. Those two guys are going to be on this line too. Connor and Scheifele are going to be on line one, and then figuring out where Iafallo goes. And I would have time for Velarde just going right back to his spot on that top line. But I do wonder about breaking up more than just one line of the top three. Like, I've got a lot of time for a potential line of Iafallo, Niederreiter with Adam Lowry. And I think certainly on paper, and I think I mentioned that when they played together, that could be the best incarnation of the Lowry line since he's been here. But I have a hard time making the case that we should move Appleton off that line right now, considering what he's doing night in and out and the way that is going. Like, I assume that it will be probably Vlad Nemestikov, who has been so good with Perfetti and Ehlers. moving down, and then potentially Perfetti getting back in for a little bit more action at center and see how that works with Vilardi on the wing. And if that doesn't work, you've got some other options. But as I said, good problems to have right now for the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll see tomorrow morning if Gabriel Vilardi is going to be a go and return to the lineup. And then we'll find out a little bit more into the mind of Rick Bowness as to how he sees that shaken down. And by the way, speaking of Rick Bowness, I know this isn't necessarily the MVP of players, but a lot of justifiable credit and love for Scott Arniel and the job he did behind the bench while Bones was away taking care of his wife, Judy. Let's Connor, we can't have you on here. And listen, it is Monday. We got a Monday nighter tonight about coming out of the weekend and talking a little NFL. For those that don't know, Connor, big time Niner guy. The Niners are back, and we'll touch on this in the Coolbet lines in a minute. But I was stunned, but I get it. Next week, San Francisco is in Philly. Philly 10-1. Niners with 3 losses. And San Francisco is anywhere from a 2.5 to a 3-point favorite at most books. But I'll be honest, I think this line makes sense. Give me your optimism meter for where the Niners are right now as opposed to where it was after they lost 3 in a row heading into their bye week.
Oh, it's never been higher right now. It's before that losing streak, by the way, just for context, I went to one of the games. I went to Minneapolis and watched them lose with my own eyes. But it was rough. They didn't have Deebo Samuel. They didn't have Trent Williams. Now both those guys are back right out of the bye week with both of those guys back. They blow out Jacksonville by 30 points on the road. Jacksonville had won 5 straight games at that point, and then they beat Tampa Bay. And then Thursday Night Football, American Thanksgiving against the Seattle Seahawks on the road. I mean, that first half, they made the Seattle Seahawks look like the Carolina Panthers. Like the Seahawks had 15 yards in the first half. Like that was just a dominant performance. They kind of came back in the second half, but yeah, never been more optimistic about the Niners right now, especially with how good Brock Purdy's playing.
Yeah, Remo, I mean, you have no skin in this game. What did you think about the Niners being made favorites in that game next week in Philly? And listen, if you just had to pick, who's the best team in the NFC right now? Who's most likely to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl of those two teams? Or maybe it's somebody else. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I actually do have skin in the game. I got Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey in the media fantasy league, so they've been carrying me. But I really like San Francisco. Great defense when everyone is healthy. Their offense is pretty good. Brock Purdy's just doing his best job to give the skilled players the ball. But really hard for me to pick against the Philadelphia Eagles right now, defending Super Bowl champions. You look at the teams they've beat so far this year. Just that epic game against the Bills over the weekend. They beat the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Cowboys, Dolphins. Gone through pretty much everyone. So I really hard. I don't care where the game is. Maybe your only concern would be Jalen Hurts looks a bit banged up at times, but hey, he had no problem running for the game-winning touchdown yesterday. So I don't know how anyone would be favored against the Eagles right now. I guess because it's at home and the 49ers played on Thursday, they got some more rest, and that Eagles game went pretty late yesterday.
That's a good point. I guess I did forget about that extra couple days of rest and preparation, and that should be good. But I'll tell you what, Eagle fan, maybe close your ears for this one. Congratulations, raise the banner, you're Week 12 champions, and that's it. Because I think it's San Francisco is going to flex this weekend and get a little bit closer. Although with the cushion that they have, if they kind of do their job through the rest of the way, they're still going to be getting San Francisco at the link, which will be a tough place to go in and win on the playoffs. Connor, are the Bills done? 6-6. They're 10th in the AFC right now. They got to play the Chiefs in a couple weeks. I mean, the schedule, they lost to the Patriots. They lost those games that they had to have earlier on. And that game yesterday, to be honest, and this is another reason why I don't believe in Philly, another week where you come out going, how the hell did they win that game? 2 missed field goals. Listen, they got it done in overtime, stopping them. But what's the takeaway on Buffalo right now for you?
I mean, yeah, You remember, let's go back to week 1 when they lost to a Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets. Rodgers snaps his Achilles in the first 3 plays, and then they go on to lose. Like, that should have been a sign right then and there that the Bills maybe weren't the team that we thought this offseason. But yeah, they definitely lost some games they should have won, and now you're going to have to beat a Philly on the road, and you didn't. And you're going to have to beat Kansas City. You're going to have to beat Dallas, I think, is on their schedule. And it's like, well, you didn't take care of the teams you were supposed to beat, and now you're going to have to punch kind of above your weight class and beat these incredible teams. I think they're done. I think if they sneak in, they're going to be really interesting. Like if a 2 seed Kansas City plays a 7 seed Buffalo in round 1, that could be must watch TV. But well, I don't think they make it.
It'll be way better for the playoffs in the league if they're there. I mean, right now, if you're looking at the matchups, like Indy is in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Remo, the Bills they're at the Chiefs after their bye week, home to the Cowboys, at the Chargers, home to the Patriots, and at the Dolphins in week 5. They're 6-6. At minimum, they got to get to 9-8. And even then, with some of their conference losses, I'm not sure they'd win a tiebreaker. What's your playoff percentage for the Bills?
Man, yeah, they would probably need to win 4 of the remaining games. And the sure win here is the Patriots. Other than that, I think the Chargers are pretty good, even if they keep losing all these close games. The Dolphins are interesting. The Dolphins haven't beaten too many good teams. They are at home against, as you said, the Cowboys, but the Chiefs, I think low. They would have to win 4 of these remaining. They only got 5 games.
They're on the bye this week, and that's why they're at 6-6. Behind
they're done.
I think so
done.
too. Hard to believe we'll be going into the AFC playoffs in all likelihood with no Bills and no Bengals, considering where those teams were thought to be at. And Chiefs got it right. Kind of an ugly start yesterday, down 14-0 to the Raiders, but somehow managed to come back and win and cover. Shout out to you, Patrick Mahomes. We love that. But yeah, this way things are coming down. Thoughts on this game tonight, Connor? Vikings? Do the Vikes get this done and put a little more pressure on Detroit after their home loss on Thanksgiving to the Pack?
It's in Chicago tonight, right? Yeah.
I believe it's in Minnesota.
Oh, it's in Minnesota.
It's in Minnesota.
Okay, then yeah, I definitely liked the Vikings anyways, but in Minnesota, I definitely like the Vikings. Joshua Dobbs has been one of the best stories in the NFL this year. Whether or not you think he's actually been like a serviceable, like above average quarterback is a different conversation, but the fact he's been able to come in and play the way he has, just off of, especially that Atlanta game, not even knowing any of his teammates' names, that was incredible. But yeah, I like the Vikings. Their defense has kind of turned it around a little bit the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Starting with that Niners game, who would have thought?
I was about to say, like, that was the game that turned the Vikings season around.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 2-4. Everyone expected that they would be 2-5, and then their schedule got a little lighter. Well, by winning that game and going to 3-4 on what was, I think, a scheduled loss for anybody looking at the landscape of the NFL, even with Kirk Cousins being injured, they were in a spot to put up some wins. And now the Vikes are very much live in the NFC North with those 2 head-to-head games coming up against the Lions. Reem, where are you at tonight on this game? And, we may as well segue. You can kind of do the Coolbet lines as a group, too. Vikings 3-point favorites. I'm surprised this isn't higher, to be honest. I thought it would at least be 3.5 or 4. But I guess they saw the Bears with their close call against Detroit last week. What do you think about this, the Vikes tonight?
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, he's still out. I'll go with the Vikings at home. Justin Fields, he's shown that he's a big playmaker at times, other times not great. So I don't think the Bears have the defense here with Josh Dobbs. What, astronaut? Is that what we're calling him? The
astronaut. Yeah, that's what Pat Greggy dropped on the
rocket scientist
today.
So yeah, he's very, very smart guy. I'm sure he can figure out this Bears D. So I'll go with Vikings at home, but I think it'll be pretty close.
Yeah, the line is 3. This to me has a push written all over it. If you do want to take the Vikes at -2.5, It was minus 120 when we did lock shop. It's minus 125 right now. And I think there'll be some points tonight. I like the over 43.5. That's not too big of a number playing in the Dome right now. We did crank out a couple of exclusives today. For this game tonight, we've got Justin Fields, 56 plus rushing yards. DJ Moore, 5 or more receptions. And Jordan Addison, my guy, 4 or more receptions. That's at plus 460. And then we also put in a little hockey parlay tonight. Bruins minus 1.5 against the Blue Jackets. Avalanche to beat Tampa and Vegas to beat Calgary. That one is in at plus 620. And the field goal prop, by the way, my favorite primetime bet, especially when some of these teams that are mediocre to bad, the over 3.5 field goals. And that one is plus 145 today, way higher than normal. So, let's hope we'll get the boots going on. Connor, listen, before we wrap it up, why don't you tease what's coming up a little later on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel with the latest edition of Jets This Week?
Yeah, it's episode 5, a big week, recapping the road trip, and then obviously previewing the week coming up. It's the week of Connor in Winnipeg. It's Connor Hellebuck's back. Kyle Connor's going for the goal lead. Connor McDavid Thursday night. Connor Bedard Saturday. This is a super fun week of Jets hockey, so it was fun to preview it. And the week prior, handed out my hardest working Jet of the week, the 3 stars of the week. So go check that out. I had a lot of fun doing episode 5 and previewing week of Connor. That's what we should call it. I said it was perfect that you had me on this week.
Well, it is, and we'll do this again soon. This was great. I love kind of getting a little bit more of you involved. But this is the Connor power poll right now. Number 5 is McDavid. I know he had like 9 points on the weekend. It's been a terrible start to the season for he and the Oilers. He's still stuck in 5. Connor Bedard is number 4. Young phenom. We'll see him on Saturday afternoon. Kyle Connor is number 3. He's been great. Hellebuck is still the man. He's at number 2. And today, Connor Hrabchak, number 1.
Wow.
Well done. You're going to need a big-time Jets this week to maintain your spot on the WST Connor Power Poll, but looking forward to that. And as I say, great stuff. I'm really looking forward to it a little later on tonight. We'll have that at our YouTube channel and, of course, wherever you get the podcasts. And then back to the rink tomorrow for what should be an awesome game against the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this homestand. You get Dallas, then you get game 2 of the WST ticket pack. You get both Connors, you get McDavid, and then on the Saturday you get Bedard. And then the last game of the homestand, the Jets are wearing their Fly the 48 new jerseys that everyone hated when it came out. I didn't forget that. I was not one of the people that hated it, but everyone else did. So I'm going to see what the fan reaction is when they finally wear it on the ice, because I feel like a lot of people are going to turn their opinion on that.
Were you expecting rational and reasoned takes right out of the holster on social media for something like a new jersey?
Yeah.
Well,
good
that's
call.
We'll get, as you get more experience, you'll come to expect that stuff, and then reality sort of sets in. But listen, this is going to be a real fun homestand starting it off tomorrow. Connor, we'll look forward to that a little later on. Great stuff. Thanks for jumping on with us today on was a real fun Monday edition of WST.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Right on. Enjoy the game tonight. Again, just to wrap the Coolbet promo today. Lock shop partner parlay. We got a hockey pick. We got one for the football as well. Big win for the partner parlay on the weekend with the Steelers, Rams, and Broncos. No sweater, actually. Had a real nice number. So we got some nice boosts. Oh, and Patty does have his primetime parlay with the over 3.5 field goals, a Montez Sweat sack, and TJ Hawkinson 50-plus yards. That's just under 5-1 at plus 495. There's also the Hockey Hall promo. If you do bet $10 on any of the exclusives, the hockey exclusives, you'll end up getting an entry into their monthly draw at the end of the month with some great prizes, including NHL tickets around the league. This is a fun one tonight, Reem. And, again, I do want to thank our friends at Little Brown Jug. If you joined us late, next Wednesday, December 6th, is the holiday party. Tickets are up at the link right now, $11.98. Every cent is going to the Christmas cheer board. We're also going to be doing a fun raffle there with some prizes. We're going to have pizza for you from Boston Pizza. Nick and Nikki, DQ, we're going to pop by with some ice cream treats as well. And we're going to be able to enjoy some little brown jugs out there and maybe get the bubble hockey going, some other things. But would love to see you all there. We've had so much fun doing our events at Little Brown Jug before, and I figured instead of a sports trivia night, let's just get everyone together for a little holiday party, spread some good cheer, have some beers, some food, and, Remo, just make a point of helping us pay it forward. And, of course, we know what the cheerboard does around this time of year for people in need right now. I figured it was a perfect charity to support on an event like this where we have so much to be thankful for.
Yeah. So links, as you said, in the description of this video, winnipegsportstalk.com at the top. If you're on mobile, you're going to hit the three dots to bring up the menu. But I am looking forward to seeing everyone there. And, we don't have the stress of a trivia night, Hassan. Sometimes at the trivia night, the best part is, maybe intermission or before and after, getting to have some great conversations and, not so stressed out about, what are these questions, or trying to remember whatever obscure thing that you came up. Although some of the questions were like something that happened last summer that I like, who won the golf tournament, and I'm like, oh, what? I remember watching it and talking about it, but I don't remember who won. So this should be a good time, and nice to finally do another event here. So a number of events, coming up here.
We'll do a sports trivia event some point in the spring again. It takes a lot of time to kind of curate all the questions and everything like that. So we just kind of want to have a party. Mary Jane, this will be my first holiday party with WST. Well, it's going to be our first too with you. But we cannot wait for that. And MC Stormy, one day I'll make an event. MC Stormy, why don't you make it next Wednesday? I know there's a couple people that have bought tickets just to support the charity as well. But hopefully you'll all be able to make it. So next Wednesday, Little Brown Jug. Let's do it up WST style for a great cause for the Christmas cheerboard. And a big thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ for their support of the event. And, of course, WST. Check them out. DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ in Niverville, at DQ Manitoba if you want to get a custom cake ordered for the holidays or at some point. And check out their new Pita Pit as well in Niverville at Pita Pit Niverville. And if you do want to cater from them, hit them up on Instagram or X at Pita Pit Niverville. Right back at it tomorrow with a big game day show, Remo. I am counting down the hours to getting back to the rink for the Dallas game. And then Thursday night, Oilers and the WST crew back in 316.
Oh, baby. Yeah, big week of home games. And, Saturday, the Blackhawks. But we're here for this division matchup tomorrow night. And, Thursday, WST night. And what, they still got the Thirsty Thursday ticket deal too. If you wanted to join us there, we'll be in 316. We'll be at the Hangar. Is that what it's called? The Hangar bar there. So real exciting week here of Jets hockey as they look to maintain their spot in the Central Division.
Damn right. And obviously we're 0-1 as a group, so we need to get back to 500 with a big win as the WST contingency on Thursday night. But our focus is going to be on a big battle for the top of the Central Division tomorrow with the Dallas Stars. 7 p.m. We'll be all over it. I believe Mike McIntyre is going to jump on with us tomorrow. We'll have plenty of audio from the morning skate. We'll find out if Gabriel Velarde's back in the lineup. So all of that on tomorrow's edition of WST. And you mentioned, check out, by the way, if you're thinking about tickets, a big-time Cyber Monday promo today as well. A $50 ticket for a certain number of games. And I think if you get one, you can get it for some other games as well. So go to winnipegjets.com/Cyber Monday and jump on that.
This was a really good deal, Huss, for the Jets. So, beat the winner Blues night, $50 to go to Jets Blue Jackets. So, but if you get that, you can get $50 tickets to one of these A games. Canadians, Bruins, Red Wings. The Leafs game they had, that's sold out, so you can't get. But if you get the $50 tickets, Jan 9 beach towel giveaway. Ooh, that sounds like a nice one. Beat the winner Blues.
Yeah.
Jan 9 against Columbus. Maybe you want to see Patrick Laine. Although I looked at Laine's stats, I was going to play him in fantasy. He's got only 3 goals this year. I know he was injured for a bit, but that seems very low. Not going well in Columbus. But hey, if you get tickets to that Columbus game, $50 to an A game like Montreal, Boston, or Detroit.
Yeah, jump on that. There'll be limited amount of games for those other December games. So I would jump on those ASAP. WinnipegJets.com/Cyber Monday. All right, we got to get this pod up. Don't forget, later on, Connor will have Winnipeg Jets this week. Check that out as well on YouTube or the podcast. And make sure to join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a big game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk, heading into the opening of a new homestand against the Dallas Stars in a huge Central Division battle. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. All of you for joining us. Hit that thumbs up, by the way, on your way out, folks. And tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk and make a plan to join us next Wednesday, December 6th at Little Brown Jug for the holiday party in support of the Christmas Cheer Board. That's going to do it for us. Go Vikes tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk, everyone. Later.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.